Brother, I'm going, run a wild Hulk Hogan. If I like get some moment, I'll make sure it's an explosion. Cause lately I've been seeing stars, trying to kick out on this choke cord. But it's no holds barred, middle fingers like I'm stone cold.
What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Slapping Me Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, WeTooDeep. As always, this is the solo episode here where on Tuesdays it's me and Wavy D here, and then on Thursdays or Fridays or whatever extra day I have available, I do a solo show as well to sort of go a little bit deeper into some wrestling news and more so for me to have the opportunity to sort of rant, right? We know I like to do that, right? And so with that, before we jump into this episode, as always, QR code in the bottom of the screen over here. Take you to the WWE shop. Use our link, our affiliate link. It gives us a small percentage of the purchase to come back into the show. Link to that is also in the description if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. Speaking of that, if you're listening on Spotify and Apple, click the follow or subscribe button. Click the thumbs up. Leave us a review, 5 stars if you like it, 1 star if you don't, right? And like, share, subscribe, all of that fun jazz. Tell your wrestling friends. Tell your friends you don't even like wrestling. Let's see if we can make some new wrestling fans. I think if, as a casual community, if we could create, we have these loudmouths in the IWC that, present a bad environment for wrestling, to be honest. If you've ever been around them at like wrestling shows, it creates a very bad environment. But I went to Raw on Monday and I was surrounded by casual fans who really didn't know the product all that well, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had at a wrestling show because they were so new to the product. They just wanted to enjoy what was in front of them, not necessarily, I feel like it was more freeing for them to not have to, break down everything. And then that, for me, made it more enjoyable because everyone around me was having a good time. And when people sit there and start, I hate being in a crowd where people around me are bitching about booking decisions and all of that. They're just there having a good time. That's what I was there for. And I did have a good time on Monday. But if we share this around, create a good casual environment about wrestling, maybe we could make the fan base a little bit more tolerable. Yeah, so like, share, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, same thing, like, share, subscribe, share with your friends, family, whoever that likes wrestling, or again, try to use this as a platform to get people to enjoy wrestling as well. But with that, let's dive on in. Start like we always do, with the NXT review. There's no AEW review this week. I didn't watch it. Didn't really care for it. I said last week, you guys are, AEW weekend after weekend sort of just lost me again, right? You had me with Omega. You had me with Orange Cassidy. And then you lost me over the 2 weeks after that, right? And so I've seen some clips. I saw that Darby Allin came in with a flamethrower, which what in the backyard mud show is going on there? So didn't really care about AEW this week. Let's talk about NXT. We got another solid episode of NXT, right? It wasn't anything, overboard, spectacular. It was just NXT, right? And that is the what I like about NXT is that it's consistent, right? So, for example, Monday Night Raw can have a very good episode one week, and then the next week create a very bad episode or not as good episode. It's not consistent in the product that you get. I feel like NXT is super consistent in that you're going to get the same thing. You're going to get the same thing every week. I've seen some people commentate on NXT that it's too cartoony, it's too childish, it's too that it's really really bad to them. And I don't know what NXT they're watching. Um, I just don't. This this show, I'll say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Is the best wrestling show on TV right now. In that it at least it caters to me, and I think it caters. Honestly, if casual fans would give NXT an opportunity, you would probably fall in love with it the way that I've fallen in love with it. If you could get yourself through 2 to 3 weeks of NXT where you don't know the people, because that's typically the excuse casual fans use as to why they don't watch NXT is they don't know the wrestlers. They're unfamiliar with them. If you give yourself a month to learn what is going on the show, just sit there, watch, and take it in, and you'll know the stars that they're pushing, right? Every single person that's on the screen, they're there for a reason. There's a purpose to it. It gets explained. Everything's understood. And that to me is what makes NXT better than Raw, better than SmackDown. Raw and SmackDown have superior athletes. Absolutely. I think there's very few on NXT that I would argue, excuse me, from a athletic standpoint is better in the women's division. I don't think there's anyone better than Bianca, Jade, Charlotte, Becky, right? You got the top talent, absolutely. But from a overall standpoint of the product you're putting on TV, the consistency, the of the product, the ease in which it is to watch NXT. Everything's explained. Everything is you're told all the information you need to know to understand what is happening. I I don't see that from any other wrestling show, right? I don't see that all the time from Raw. I don't see that all the time from SmackDown. I feel like honestly, if casual fans would give it a shot, watch on Tuesdays, I feel like you would enjoy that product to where you would come over and join me on this side saying, yeah, um, NXT is the best wrestling / sports entertainment show every single week. This week, no different, right? We start with Fallon Henley versus Thea Hale, qualifying match for Battleground Ladder match to become the first NXT Women's North American Champion, right? A purposeful match, but they did this on purpose because there's a story between the two. So I think my only complaint is you sort of listed out your top 12. That should have been a seeding. It shouldn't have just been here's the 12 who made it. You should have been like, okay, Sol Ruka is the top person. She should be the number 1 seed. She should face the 12 seed. And she ended up facing like the 4th seed. So it's not a big deal, but it is one of those things where like, well, how are these matches determined? Like you could have messed around a little bit more with it to where it was sort of seeding rather than just random opponents thrown together. Um, but I'm not complaining. I think that this really the first time I've ever think they've tried this style of how you're going to get someone into a qualifying match. I enjoy it. I think it's fine. I think there's improvements. I said that with the combine when I talked about it a few weeks ago. Um, and so the point still stands. You could tweak this. You can make it better. But Thea Hale, Fallon Henley, wonderful. They're telling the story with Ridge Holland and Raleigh Osborne as well. There's like 3 stories going on here. You have the Women's North American Championship, of course, being the center point of why this match is happening. But then you have Fallon and Thea sort of having some beef, and then you have the Chase U, um, Raleigh Osborne versus Rich Holland feud. So there's a lot going on in this first segment, and it goes well. I'm not the type of person that likes to critique TV matches. I don't think they're meant to be the greatest matches of all time. They're meant to be a plot point, a way to. They're meant, and this is my philosophy on WWE, AEW, any company on your TV matches. They're not supposed to be the greatest match of all time. You shouldn't have your match of the year on a Dynamite or a episode of NXT or a Raw or SmackDown, right? Your match of the year should be at a pay-per-view where people pay to watch you to wrestle, right? Um, and and so these matches are basically gimmicks that are used to push the plot, and that's exactly what this is in multiple ways. You get Chase U kicked out because Fallon grabbed the chair and Ridge stopped her from putting it in the ring, and so the ref saw Ridge with the chair and kicked out Chase U, which then allowed Fallon to get the upper hand and win the match. Perfect. Then you add, completely forgot about this until just now, you add the 4th element of storytelling with Jasmine Nix at the end of the match. Match is over. Fallon's on the ramp. They turn the camera back to the ring, and Jasmine Nix is beating the holy hell out of Thea Hale, getting revenge for breaking JC Jane's nose. And let me tell you something, y'all. Jasmine Nix, I'm writing this down. Remember this moment. If she's not a star by the end of this year, she's going to be on my women to watch out for in 2025 at the end of this year. Jasmine Nix has the look. She has, the TV presence on camera. At first, she was a little bit awkward to me. I felt like she wasn't 100% in character all the time with some of her facial expressions, but she's getting better at it. I don't know what the hell you call that kick she gave to. I think she was a soccer player, right? Her real name I think is Jay Gentile. I think her her birth name, and I think she was a soccer player in college, and so that had to be where she learned that kick from. I've never seen that before. It was pretty cool to watch. But she has the look of a superstar. She has it all. I'm writing her down. I'm circling her. She's the next big star coming out of NXT. I'm gonna write that one down. I could be wrong. This could be too early to tell. But that's my feeling on Jasmine Nix right there. Right. So we move through the night, and I'm not going to sit here and review the whole show. I'll say I enjoyed a lot of it. That we had a tag team match that pushed story, but for Axiom. And here's what I like about Axiom, right? Because everyone sort of knows that Axiom is a kid. If you've paid attention to NXT long enough, and so this is some of the area where if you're a casual fan, you would have no idea what was going on. So there's a backstage promo. Tony D has the Heritage Cup, and he walks in, and Fraser and Axiom walk up to them and say, "Hey, congratulations." Fraser says, "Congratulations on winning the cup," which Tony D says, "Hey, I saw your name on it." And then he turns to Axiom and said, "Well, I don't see your name on it." And so they start going through the names. I think it was Rizzo that said, yeah, you got Dempsey and Fraser and some guy named A Kid. And Tony, I think it was Tony or Stacks, said, "Hey, have we heard from him? Where anyone know where he's been?" And Crucifino then adds in, he must have not been very good with a name like A Kid. Meanwhile, you're literally standing in front of A Kid. Like the fact that they continue to mention this, right? That it's sort of an inside joke for those who've been paying attention to NXT for a long time. Casual fan, if this was your first time watching, you would have had no idea what was going on. I'm fine with some of this because it's a little bit of acknowledgement to the long-term fans of the product that, hey, we know you know who this is, right? Because my first thing when Axiom debuted and they so for those who don't know, A Kid was Axiom's name in NXT UK. For whatever reason, they changed it to Axiom when he came to America and was in NXT. For whatever reason, I have no idea. They put a mask on him. They changed his name to Axiom, and it is what it is. And they sort of didn't mention the elephant in the room that this is A Kid. But now here recently, they've sort of been poking fun at it, and I popped at it. Right, you're right. I popped at it. Every time they mention A Kid, I pop because you're literally standing right in front of them, right? And so it's a little bit of that inside joke for the long-term fans of NXT that I appreciate. You get this tag match. What wasn't it? Damon Kemp and Miles Bourne attack D'Angelo and the family. A Kid and Fraser retain. I like this. I like this a lot. Very good match. Very good, segment overall. You get the triple threat between Briggs, Wesley, and now Joe Coffey, because Ivar is out after the attack last week. Gallus boys are back. Joe Coffey and Wesley pick up the win. This is a unique finish. I don't ever recall us ever having this type of finish in WWE that I can remember, where two people get the pin. Typically, if this happened, they sort of restart the match, don't they? But they go with this decision. It becomes a triple threat at Battleground for the North American Championship, which is really fun. Gallus has basically come back and within 2 weeks taken over the show because they come in and attack Trick Williams as well this week. Here's my thing with Gallus. I like Gallus. I really do. I just don't think they need to be in NXT right now. This would have been a really good opportunity to, when they came back, to have Gallus return and attack a team like Awesome Truth. To have them come in and attack Awesome Truth would be fantastic. Right? And have them do the same gimmick, do the same thing you're doing on NXT, but do it on Raw, where they're attacking everyone. They just come in and run chaos on Monday Night Raw. Right? Or even if they come in, because I've said this before, I'm not the biggest supporter of having this idea that everything must be heel versus face. To have them on SmackDown where they really desperately need some talent. They need something, right? Because right now SmackDown is very Bloodline and Cody centered, and there's nothing else standing out. And how do you create something, right? And so I'll say it this way: Raw is very, very focused on its mid card, which is why I like Raw, right? Because you're focused on that tag division. They don't really do much with it but R-Truth and them are on TV all the time, so there's a lot of focus there. You're focused on the IC title, right? Priest as world champion, not a bad world champion, but there's no real story development on who's going to face Damian Priest. There's nothing really building there. He's more involved in just the whole Judgment Day as a whole, being the leader there, right? And that's fine. But Raw is very, very mid-card built, right? The mid-card is the strongest part of the roster, right? You go to the women's division, and it's a little bit different, but the women's division in general for main roster WWE has never focused on really the mid-card. but there's a lot of focus on, Becky and Liv. It really got that hand, but you got a lot of other stuff going on the women's division on Raw, not so much on SmackDown, right? The main focus on SmackDown is, well, Cody Rhodes, the Bloodline, Bianca and Jade, to the point that even Bayley sort of feels mid-card to me. Bayley doesn't feel like the champion to me, right? When you ask me who the women of SmackDown are, I'm saying Bianca and Jade before I'm saying Bayley. And so I feel like where SmackDown is super top heavy with the star power, because Charlotte's still technically on that roster, right? So when you look at the star power on the SmackDown roster, it's top heavy. The main focus every week on SmackDown is the Bloodline. It's Cody. It's Jade and Bianca, and that's it. Whereas on Raw, the main focus is that the mid card, right? The IC title, the tag team titles, the Braun Breaker's technically mid card at this point, right? But he's one of the he had one of the bigger moments of this past episode of Raw, right? And so, in that sense, NXT is really built very evenly across the roster, and it's stacked. That tag division stacked, the women's division stacked, the men's division stacked. Gallus isn't needed in NXT anymore. There's a lot of people in NXT. I don't want to say a lot, but there's a few people in NXT that just aren't needed there anymore. Gallus is one of them. I would say Roxanne's one of them. I think that changes after Battleground. Hopefully she loses the belt, and then hopefully she moves up to the main roster. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, that's where I feel, because let's do this very easy, WWE. Roxanne loses the title, she gets put in Money in the Bank. Very easy to move her up as like a special entrant into Money in the Bank. It's very easy to do that. So there you go. I gave you your way to book Roxanne to the main roster. But yeah, Gallus, I love them. I'm glad that they're here on NXT's roster. I'll take them, right? I'll take them, right? As the sort of unofficial, official, ambassador for NXT. Like, I'm probably the biggest, at least in the casual fan base. I'm probably the biggest NXT fan there is. So I'm going to name myself the casual representative of NXT. That's me. It's me. It's We Too Deep. Anyway, that's a little corny, but we'll move on with, NXT was a really, really good show overall. Ending the show with Carmen and Natalya beating Lola and Shayna, which leads to Lola kicking Baszler, which then leads Baszler to to choke her out. Careful to clutch, I think is what the move is called. Which then sets up, Ava being the best GM that she is, right? This is what I'm talking about, right? You have Braun Breaker attacking everyone backstage, and Adam Pearce is just going to sit there and be the little bitch, right? He's just going to sit there, and Braun's like, you don't control me anymore. All right, that's cool, Braun. That's cool. But if you understand, Braun, you couldn't do that in NXT. Braun Breaker wasn't doing this when Ava was around, right? Braun Breaker understood that Ava was the law, right? We understand on NXT that Ava was the law. Y'all want to fight? We gonna get a match. We gonna make money out of it. Adam Pearce, do your job, dude. Do your job. Put Braun in a match. Like Ava, the best GM, right? Hey, we're not gonna fight here. We're not gonna do all of this. If you're gonna try to act out, guess what? Y'all want to fight? We gonna fight, and we gonna make money off of it, right? And then so at Battleground, and then it gets announced, nah. Shayna grabs the mic and says, nah, we doing this NXT underground style in Battleground in Las Vegas at UFC Apex. Guys, it writes itself. At first, I was sitting here like, why is Baszler the center some storyline right here. Why is Baszler getting a lot of dude? This makes sense. Like when I sit back and fully think about it, excuse me, it just makes the most sense. This, like I said, NXT is logical as all hell, dog. NXT is one of the most logical wrestling shows out there. Everything that they do has some like they don't try to make you question your intelligence, right? You're putting in the NXT battleground with this. It's essentially no rules. You can do MMA style type match basically, and you're putting it in this match, this underground match. You're putting two former UFC, I believe they both were UFC. Yeah. Shayna was the one I was questioning, but I do believe she was UFC. But you're putting two UFC former mixed martial artists. I don't know if she was on the Ultimate Fighter. I do know that. Which is a UFC show. So we'll just say there's two past former UFC fighters. You're going to put them in the UFC Apex in a sort of mixed martial arts style match. Bro, this writes itself, dude. This is perfect. This is perfect. And there's a little bit of story. Shayna wants to be fist, no dancing. Latina Mami and Lola Vice, the Latina Heat. She wants to shake her hips a little bit because them hips don't lie. And this is just going to be a good match. It's just going to be a good match, right? It's not going to be the best match of the year, but it's going to be a solid match at Battleground. So that's my long-winded NXT review. Some news that I want to talk about before we get into the main topic today. Danhausen left some cryptic stuff here, where apparently maybe he's done with AEW. There's the rumor surrounding is that they're not going to bring him back. Maybe he's been released or whatever. They're not going to re-sign him, mostly because of his sort of affiliation and supporting CM Punk. Which, if this is the reason, Tony Khan, you're dumb, dude. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Danhausen. I think the gimmick is kind of stupid, right? But I've never really been a fan of the supernatural, and he's sort of like the comedy and supernatural, which are the two type of gimmicks that I enjoy the least, right? However, there's a market here. There's people who like Danhausen. If you're just going to not put him on TV and you're not going to bring him back because he's friends with CM Punk, this just shows the level of sort of immaturity in this locker room. Who's running the company, and why, and how are you running it? Are you going to try to do this to make money? Because Danhausen makes money. Danhausen would work 1,000% in the WWE. He would. If WWE signed Danhausen, you could have him pop up. I feel like this could be one of those things where like he could pop up at random times and just like the camera's rolling with someone and he's just sitting in the background like hiding, and then at some point in the show he like jumps out and jump scares someone like boo, right? I think that would be funny. Like, it doesn't have to be a serious gimmick. He's not the greatest wrestler in the world. And so I don't really necessarily need him in a match all the time, but not every character needs to be wrestling, right? Danhausen could just be in the back causing chaos, putting spells on people. This would work a lot with, going back to NXT, Anofe and Malik Blade Anofe believes he has like bad luck because of broken mirrors and black cats and all of that. If you had Danhausen there to sort of like clear him of his spell, and then they go on a winning streak, that would work, dude. That would be funny, right? That would be funny. It would work. Speaking of that match, I forgot to talk about it. Brindley Reese is pretty good. Jada Parker does not need this title. I think Brindley should have won this because Jada should be fighting for the NXT Women's Champion. She should be NXT Women's Champion. I believe that. Like, I think she already has that it factor. And I'm still upset that OTM has not mentioned where the fuck Reggie went. Like, we know that Scripps got released. We know he got released. Just, bro, all you got to do is come out there and, like, mourn his death. And you don't really have to show him dying, but, like, you wrote off Drew Gulak. Why are we not writing off Scripps? Give a reason for why he's not there anymore outside of what we already know that he got released. But to a casual fan who may not pay attention to that news, okay, where the hell the other dude at, right? And so we need to fill that information gap in. That's the only thing I got to say. But Danhausen, not really going to spend a lot of time on him, but yeah, it would be stupid for AEW to not let him work in their company, to miss out on his fan base supporting your company and paying you money for merch and stuff because he likes CM Punk. That's childish, dog. That's really childish to me. But let's get into the main topic today, and that is a WeTooDeep rant on Daniel Bryan. Bryan Danielson to you AEW marks. So I'll start out with this. I'm going to start out with a story. Why am I even talking about this? In 2014, when I first got back into wrestling, right? Royal Rumble 2014 was the first big show that I really sat down and watched. Daniel Bryan did not win the Royal Rumble like the Yes Movement won it. Batista won this Royal Rumble, right? And this set off a whole like 3 months of television that was so captivating to me, right? In that I completely just was 100% sold on Daniel Bryan. And for most people, Daniel Bryan sold to them because of, he's 5'7", 200 pounds wet, and that's the average size of a male in America. And the people who watch the show, related to the smaller guy winning, right? That's not what related to me because I'm 6'3", and I'm a hell of a lot more than 200 pounds, right? Even at that time in 2014, like the size story that's not what connected me to Daniel Bryan. What connected me to Daniel Bryan is the story around him of, the authority at the time. Triple H, Stephanie saying, you're a B+ player. You're not good enough to do this, right? And how many people, let's just be honest with you, have been told that in their life? You're not good enough to do this, right? And so that is where I connected, right? The emotion behind, the reason why Daniel Bryan, he's trying to prove people wrong. I relate so much to that, right? I relate to that, right? And so I was hooked. Daniel Bryan had to win at WrestleMania 30. He had to beat Triple H. And then he beats Triple H, right? And everyone sort of sits about WrestleMania 30 and, I could care less that Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker's streak. Let's just be honest. The only thing that I care about that is that Daniel Bryan left the night as World Heavyweight Champion, right? He beat Triple H, he beat Orton, he beat Batista, right? And he is WWE champion. I still think potentially one of the greatest moments in WWE history, right? And then you add to it the Connor's Cure promo package that they played for like the next 2-3 years until Daniel Bryan got released, right? They played him for a lot longer than that, like 5, 6, 7 years of Connor and Daniel and all that, like, and right, that drew me to Daniel Bryan, right? And then, right, and so he wins this title. He immediately continually gets beat up by Kane. Everyone talks about Edge and his retirement, and I wasn't watching at that point, so I really don't have that level of connection to Edge, right? And his retirement. Um, Daniel Bryan's though, like, you want to talk about, you want to get me emotional, show me Daniel Bryan retiring, right? That speech, the day that and Roman Reigns announcing he had leukemia are the two things that I would say, like, literally make me bawl my eyes out. I'm just gonna be honest with you, right? Um, that's what gets me emotional. Um, and so it was the emotion behind the character that Daniel Bryan was my favorite wrestler for the longest time, right? And then he retires, he's gone, he then comes back, and you could tell Vince is holding him back, right? There's certain moves Daniel Bryan's not allowed to do, and it works for him, right? Because even back then, like, any move that he did, like, scared me a little bit. Like, this is serious stuff right here. But Vince held him back. He wanted to protect him. And a lot of people bitched that Vince McMahon held Daniel Bryan back, but I was glad that he did. So then he goes to AEW. And Tony Khan sort of frees him from this leash that Vince had him on, where now he's able to do whatever he wants to do. And it just, that's fine. It scares me every time I see, like, he just had the match of the year to me with Ospreay, and I 100% believe he was safe. I don't believe he was ever in danger. Ospreay's a pretty safe wrestler to work with. But then you see this tweet from Fightful, and I don't really believe Fightful all the time. But I believe this one. Daniel Bryan says the following quote, "I got shooting pain down my arm. I'm at home and I have to go get MRIs. I have a compression of the nerve root at C6, C7, and T1. And I've got this shooting pain that's running down my arm that won't go away. The doctor is telling me pretty soon I'm going to have surgery. The only way I can hold out, is if I can keep the strength in my right hand. Right now, it's still there." Guys, I read this, and this is going to be an emotional rant. I read this, and it immediately pisses me off. This is what I'm talking about. This is what me and guys in the casual community, like Wavy D, like Nerdy D, like guys like that, this is what we're talking about when we say that some of these people need to stop doing some of these moves. Daniel Bryan was gifted a second chance at a career, and I understand when it comes to wrestling that it's in their blood. It's the adrenaline rush that they crave. But some of these guys need to think about their health, their well-being, and their family. Daniel Bryan's got a family, and he's not going to be able to take care of them. If this dude loses feelings in his arms and his right, dude's gonna end up paralyzed, dude. I'm sorry. That's just the. And then, so this tweet comes out that he's got pain and pinched nerves, and he probably is going to need another surgery to the spine. And so, what does AEW do? Let's just throw you an Anarchy in the Arena. One of the most stupid ideas that we could do. We're going to throw you in it. We're going to let you do whatever you want to do. Put you in a lot of danger. We put Darby Allin in the match, so something stupid's going to happen. But this is what AEW fans like. This is what we've been saying, that AEW does not care, and the fans do not care about the well-being of these wrestlers, right? You know what the greatest thing Will Ospreay has ever done? He retired the Tiger Driver 91. And whether it's storyline or not, the greatest thing he could do is get rid of that move. It's not needed. He hasn't done it in the last couple matches. And guess what? He's still putting on bangers. You don't need to drop people on their head, dude. I think Will Ospreay gets it, even if it's just gimmick for right now. Right? The fans of AEW, and I believe AEW itself, does not care. I believe the wrestlers do not care about their own well-being. They just want to go out, and they say they're doing whatever it takes to entertain the fans. But so then it comes back to the fans. How are y'all entertained by Daniel Bryan having shooting pain down his arms to where he may lose strength in both of his hands? Where he won't be able to do this anymore. Where he won't be able to hold his daughter, or he won't be able to take care of Brie. This is what pisses me off. That a guy that was at the top of the biggest wrestling promotion, had one of the biggest moments in wrestling history, gets a second chance. And yes, he gets held back a little bit. Yes, he got put on a leash. Yes, Vince wouldn't let him do all the crazy things. And at the same time, I have to go to Daniel and be like, bro, Bryan Danielson, what are you doing, my guy? You're destroying your body. For what? For what? It irritates me. It irritates this is why I get so mad at the assumption of risk argument. I get so mad at it because you got guys like Daniel Bryan who don't care about the assumption of risk. He knows that there's a risk, and then he adds to it by doing stupid shit. You got guys like Darby Allin who do the same thing because and this is why, like, because you do one thing and now you gotta step your game up, and this breed of wrestling fan is just it's driving wrestlers to do more and more stupid things because they want to please the audience, but the audience is never pleased unless someone's bleeding or hurt or leaving on a stretcher, or until Darby Allin's paralyzed and he comes out rolling down the ramp in a wheelchair, right? I just like the same thing goes with like Wesley comes back, dude. He comes back and I'm happy he's back, but then he comes out and he starts doing the same shit that got him hurt. I wince every time he does a jump over the ring now because I know he's had serious spinal surgery. Like, I don't know, some of these things, man, it just I care a lot about these wrestlers, dude. I want them to have good lives when they can retire. And a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are going to be in the business till they're 95 years old to make money to live because they can't do anything else. Now, there's a reason Ric Flair is still trying to make money in wrestling. He can't do anything else. And he needs money. I'm not going to sit here and say he's broke, but there's a lot of wrestlers who continue to job themselves out on the indie scene because they're broke. And they need money and they can't do anything else. It's right. That's the sad world of pro wrestling. And it irritates me. And I wish the AEW fans would care more and start demanding that Tony Khan care more about his wrestlers, that he would stop putting them in situations, right? Tony Khan should have never allowed Daniel Bryan to do half the out of the ring like suicidas that he's done. Daniel Bryan, it's like he'll dive out of the ring and like go neck first into the fucking barricade, and it's right. Of course you're gonna get hurt, right? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't get it at all. and right. So maybe I'm wrong about it. Let me know what y'all think about it. But with that, we're going to go ahead and end the show as we always do with react to that. And this tweet, we're going to it's from an AEW fan. I'm gonna give him his 15 minutes of fame, and not that anyone cares. His name is. Oh, before we do this, I want to talk about this, because this is just something that I want to know if I'm maybe on the right or wrong area here. TNT just lost the NBA contract. It looks like ESPN, NBC, and Amazon are going to get split the contract. TNT is no longer going to have basketball. Guys, if Warner Discovery doesn't find it good enough to sign and re-sign a contract with basketball, with the NBA, with their moneymaker, does this mean that they're placing more money into Tony Khan's company, or is this my route is they don't find the NBA worth paying for, they damn sure aren't going to find AEW worth paying for. That's where my brain immediately went. My brain immediately went to, well, if they don't find the NBA worth paying for, they're not going to pay Tony Khan. But at this point, AEW is like the only original content that they have that's not a rerun of all their other shows. They still technically got the NHL, but then my mind also then went through, if they do continue with AEW on TNT broadcasting, this takes away an excuse that they love to use, that AEW fans like to use about why the ratings suck. Well, we got to go against basketball. Okay, now you don't got to go against basketball on TNT anymore. They moved the show because basketball was okay. Well, basketball's not on anymore, right? So but my initial result was like, either A, Warner is paying a lot of money to Tony Khan, and in doing so can't pay the NBA, which is dumb business, or B, they don't find the NBA worth paying for, and I don't think they're going to find AEW worth paying for. Those are the only two options to me. But now let's get to my actual react to that. AEW Defender is the Twitter account who tweeted this, that says Ricky Starks was given the keys to Collision. They positioned him to be the top heel of the show. All he had to do was sit his ass at home and not go to WWE shows. Instead, he hinted at his intentions. Hit the bench. You did it to yourself. Guys, this is the dumbest thing I have ever read on Twitter. And there's a lot of dumb shit on Twitter. You're telling me that Ricky Starks cannot go to WrestleMania to watch one of his best friends and Cody Rhodes make history? He can't watch that moment because he's AEW. That's dumb. That's dumb. This is what causes tribalism. This tweet right here is what causes tribalism. Right, so we're not going to say anything about Bayley going to watch Mercedes Moné. No, because no one cares, because Bayley is Sasha Banks' friend. Mercedes and Bayley are friends. And so you expect Bayley to support her friend. I'm all fine with that. Right? That doesn't mean that I think that Bayley's going AEW when her contract expires. Right? Ricky Starks went to support his friend. So my response is this: either A, this fan is blaming Ricky Starks' lack of TV time on something that isn't true and Tony Khan doesn't care, or B, Tony Khan does care and he took Ricky Starks off of TV because he's being petty, because he gets seen in pictures at WWE shows supporting his friend. But then let's circle this around. How insecure are you that you're afraid of losing Ricky Starks? Ricky Starks will be in WWE. I promise you he will be. This was one of the first little notches that I already sort of put a check mark next to. Right? Wardlow, I thought, but then he re-signed. Hobbs, I thought, but then he re-signed. MJF, we don't know. Right? But I almost felt like Ricky Starks was a guarantee because of how much time, because he is a friend with Cody. And I feel like Ricky Starks is the only smart one in this company at times that looks at AEW and then he looks across the aisle at the competition that he's going against, and he looks at AEW and he says, I don't want to be here no more. And then he looks at WWE and he says, that's where I want to be. That's where the stars are being made right now. And I almost feel like it's just bad timing for him because it's so stacked of a roster. But I feel Ricky Starks could come in on SmackDown and join that US title picture and be right at home and make great television. I feel Ricky Starks would fit right in that division, just personally. So that's my reaction to that. Like, why are we sitting here gatekeeping what human beings could do? Like, Ricky Starks can't go in and have a good night out. He can't go in and watch WWE. You would never say this. If Ricky Starks was seen at a TNA show, no one would say anything. If he was seen at some New Japan show, no one would say anything. Right? Right? And this is what we mean, or this is what I mean at least. Y'all believe that you're not competition, but then you act like it's competition. Right? You can't sort of gatekeep what Ricky Starks can and can't do, and then say, well, it's because he's going through the competition. That's what's implied here. But then say on the other hand, we're not competing. Okay, you don't even believe your own words then. All right. So that's how we'll end it. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section or in the Discord, link in the description. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Slap and Meat Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget that tonight at 9 p.m. Central, Thursday nights, is the Beyond the Junkyard podcast with James and Cody. And so check that one out. But until then, we will see you guys on Tuesday for the next episode of the Slap and Me Wrestling Podcast. My name's WeTooDeep. I'll see you on Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. See you on Tuesday.
Brother, I'm going run a wild Hulk Hogan. If I like get some moment, I'll make sure it's an explosion.